Don't you do that? Don't you do that for the music?
I do, but I like to keep it private. Just something.
Yeah, me
for
too. I slipped up. I'm sorry. All right, man.
Good. Enjoying the rainy day. Obviously, it's been a bit different down south than it has been up north in the last couple of weeks, but we've actually had pretty much a drought here. So good to see some rain.
It's yeah. I was thinking about this just before I came on. I was thinking, it's this idea. I don't really want to talk about it's not been very good weather today here after what's happened in the top half of the North Island in particular. But the thing that's unique about Dunedin, perhaps other parts of the South Island, is then this is not just for now. It's like I learned this when I moved here, that you have a 30-degree day and then the next day you have an 11-degree day. And we've been having days between 25, well, around the 25 for the last week. And today, as I got in the car and drove to drop the kids off to school because it was raining, it was 11. And I'm just like, the disparity between it's quite an interesting and unique climate, actually. Not just, there's no complaints. Trust me, people in Gisborne, there's no complaints. I'm just saying, as an observation, it's an interesting thing. Apologies, Chewy, that I gave you a bit of a fright there. It was my turn for my computer to have to reboot today. Maybe if other people are experiencing this, maybe you can tell me. I've just updated to Windows 11, and now this thing's happening where if my computer goes to sleep, sometimes when it comes back, the audio's gone, and I have to restart the computer. Now, it could be that, or it could be the new graphics card is still looking for the AMD card, which is the old card, and I've now got a 3060. And there could be a conflict there, but for some reason it goes to, so what happened was I was upstairs chin wagging, came downstairs, computer was asleep, logged it on. Chewy is sending me text messages with songs in them saying,
all by myself.
And the computer had no sound, so I had to reboot, and so we're right here, right now. Yes. So I can already see the chat's going bananas. So lovely for all of you to be with us as well. We are very much looking forward to tonight. Let me announce from right now, there will not be a show tomorrow night. I may upload one of my old DOC conversations. The reason I may upload it is we're going to play. So often I've talked about Professor Stephen Lewandowski. We talked about him last night, and the motivated cognition. Well, what I've done today is I've got a clip from that show, which is the difference between evidence and proof. When people say, show me the proof, and how that's nonsensical in the scientific world as opposed to evidence. Now, I made the mistake where I talked to him about proof, and he basically said to me, don't be a cunt. There's no such thing as proof. But we talk a bit about it. And as I was watching the clip that I pulled out for you guys tonight, I thought, actually, I could just play this whole thing, like replay it. You've never seen it probably tomorrow night at 9 o'clock. And I'm sure some of you will find it fascinating, especially in the light of two things. One is the response to COVID over the last 2.5, 3 years. And two is what's happening right now in the National Party with climate change. Because I spoke to him at quite near the start of COVID. And his research is actually in climate change, but his research is in climate change that talks to conspiracy theorists, and most of his research, if not all, can be completely transposed over onto the the COVID deniers as well. So it's basically research into conspiracy theorists, but the ones he researched were climate deniers. So there's sort of a double hit there. And I thought maybe I'll just do it as a, what do they call it on YouTube when you play something out as live? Premiere or something like that. Maybe I'll just re-upload it as a premiere and play it at 9 o'clock tomorrow night. Then you guys can check it out if you want. And if you don't, we'll catch you on Monday. But I think that's what we'll do. And we're not here tomorrow night. I haven't given you the details yet, I will afterwards, because we're going to be having a catch up and a beer with Byron Clark. Can you see over my shoulder? Up on the, just there?
Oh, your book. Bookie book.
The book right there. Up on the shelf. And as we said to you guys last Friday, if you joined us, people who did Super Chats last Friday, all of that money is going to go towards having a beer with Byron as a way to say thanks to him. So thanks for you. And speaking of that, Super Chats were great last Friday night. And for the people who've been doing it this week, we appreciate it as well. But also big, huge special thanks to our patrons, our regular patrons, the people who are on board monthly to help us keep the lights on. There is a new name, Chewy, on the board today. I think we've had a new name every day this week, which has been most gratifying. Anna Mills, thank you for coming on board. Anna Mills has joined our Fuck You Elon Musk layer, $8 a month. We appreciate that. And we look forward to getting more of you patrons on. If you're a patron to what we do, we have already sent out an invite to Saturday morning's meetup. If you're not a patron and you become a patron before Saturday morning, then you'll get that invite as well. We're going to have a worldwide meetup on Zoom. You get the link sent out to you, and as many people who want to join can join for a bit of a chat at 11 a.m. New Zealand time on Saturday morning. So all these beautiful patrons, thank you for being a part of it. I don't know if I like you on top, Chewy. I know you probably hear that quite a bit, but I'm not entirely sure if I like you on top. Yeah.
Hello.
Oh, the curtains match the drapes, bro.
Oh,
Anyway,
no.
we'll have the meetup, and it also means it's just a chat, really, a chance to hang out, you guys to be involved, ask questions, make suggestions for patrons. So as you see on the bottom of the screen, patreon.com/big hairy news. And speaking of super chats, I don't even know what's going on. We've already had a super chat from Peter. Peter, thanks so much for the super chat on the auspicious occasion that is a significant birthday. My shout boys. Oh, so Peter's having a birthday. Peter's like Jesus, because when Jesus has his birthday, we all get the presents. So there you go, Peter, on an auspicious occasion that is a significant birthday. My shout boys. Thank you, Peter.
Thanks,
appreciate the super chat. Good on you. And all the people are congratulating Anna in the chat as well. Appreciate you coming on board, Anna. Right. Anything before we rip into a huge show here, Chewmeister?
No, let's get cracking.
No, you're supposed to say yes, because now I'm padding trying to bring up my other screen.
Oh, I see.
No,
I'm not ready. I'm the one that's not ready.
Here's where I want to start. Last night we asked questions of Christopher Luxon. If you're with us last night, you would have seen what we talked about, which was quite simply when the idea of Maureen pew pew came up, he never really addressed the issue of man-made climate change. He said things like climate change is real, and he said if you don't believe in the climate, whatever the fuck that means, and he said it's real. But at no point, even though he was talking about one of his MPs who was talking about man-made climate change, he never addressed that. So we asked the question last night, does he or doesn't he, because if he does, he hasn't communicated it well. And if he doesn't, then that would be interesting to know, and it might be an issue for some people. So this morning, almost aggressively, Mr. Lux. Now, we have to give credit where credit is due, because we're fair, right? Because we wanted to know if he accepted man-made climate change. Now, long story short is he has. We're gonna see the conversation right now. And I don't want to be one of these people that goes, yeah, but he said he has, but does he really? But there is an amount of aggression and preparation comes with these answers, which does make it feel a little bit like the script has been written by his PR guy, and he wants to make sure that he gets it across really clearly. I'm being very uncharitable, and it's not fair. And I acknowledge if it was the other way around with Labor, I'd probably just be saying, well, he said it, so that's fine. So probably if I'm being fair, is like, he said it, and so it should be fine. But I'm just not entirely sure whether I buy it because of my personal bias. Let's have a listen.
Politicians returned to Parliament yesterday, and of course the main topic of discussion was the impact of Cyclone Gabrielle. One MP, the National Party's Maureen Pugh, decided yesterday was a good time to reveal she doesn't believe in man-made climate change.
It's not what I think, it's what I can prove. I am waiting on the evidence. We have cooled and warmed over millions of years.
So you don't think the current climate change is down to humans?
I have yet to see what the evidence is that they're providing about that.
Pugh reappeared a short while later, though, to completely walk back her comments, saying she regretted that she'd been unclear.
She wasn't.
I regret that my comments this morning were a bit unclear and will have led some to think that I am questioning the causes of climate change, and that is clearly not.
Okay. I was unclear, yeah, because she was questioning it, and it was incredibly clear, but let's keep going.
Not my position.
What was clear was that she'd had a chat to National Party bosses who very quickly dismissed her earlier statements. We're joined now by National Party leader Christopher Luxon. Good morning, Mr. Luxon. What did you say to Maureen Pugh?
How are you today?
Very well, thank you.
Oh, look, I mean, you can't be living in the 21st century and deny that human-induced climate change is real. It is real. There's no room for climate deniers or climate minimalists in the 21st century.
I almost missed it. It was so quick. Remember what we said last night? At no point did he say it. This time, first words out of his mouth.
It is real.
very quickly dismissed her earlier statements. We're joined now by National Party leader Christopher Luxon. Good morning, Mr. Luxon. What did you say to
Morning,
Maureen
Anna. How are you
Pugh?
today?
Very well, thank you.
Oh, look, I mean, you can't be living in the 21st century and deny that human-induced climate change is real. It is real. There's no room for climate deniers or climate minimalists in the 21st century, I just put it to you. That's why the national government signed New Zealand up to the Paris Agreement. It's why we're deeply committed to net carbon zero 2050. And so, yep, Maureen had a terrible interview. She came back and said, no, she fully understands the science base for human-induced climate change. We had a good conversation.
I disagree.
So we need to do some reading around the subject as well. So, she has a reading list that I've asked her to go through to make sure she does fully understand the science base.
So we're clear. What Mr. Luxon is trying to say is, no. Maureen has always believed that human-induced climate change, as he says it, is a real thing. That's what he's saying. And he's saying she communicated unclearly, which is what she said in her walkback. That is horseshit. We all know that's horseshit. And we're going to get to some commentary today from Paddy Gower a little bit later on. And he's got a really interesting angle on this as well. So we'll keep going with this conversation.
What have you told her to read?
Look, I think a good place is the IPCC 2022 report. I think anything by the Parliamentary Commissioner, Simon Upton, is always very good. My good friend Jonathan Porritt is a leading thinker, and anything by the late, great Sir Rob Fenwick is fantastic. So those are the articles and things that we've assembled for her to look through. But
Maureen said she was waiting on the evidence, and as an elected official, would you not expect her to be able to perhaps take her own initiative here and educate herself on man-made climate change?
Yeah, look, I mean,
today?
she expressed herself. Yeah, look, she expressed herself incredibly poorly by her own admission. And
so there's the talking point, right? The talking point is, and he said it twice already, that she expressed herself poorly. Not that's what she believes. So this is the, in my opinion, bullshit lie, is that they're trying to sell the thing that no. She's not a climate change denier about humanity. She just expressed it poorly. He said it twice already. That's the narrative they're running with.
And in part, she was referencing some conversation apparently between the regional council and the minister. That's largely irrelevant. The key thing is that she understands that the science base completely supports human-induced climate change. That's non-negotiable. And so it was good that she came out, clarified her statement.
But she actually walked it back. It wasn't just a clarification.
Yeah,
she completely walked back a very clear statement that she'd made the first time, that she would not admit that there was an impact of man on the climate. Is that not a concern for you, that you have someone, I mean, to put it bluntly, she looked a little bit like she was being held hostage at the end of reading that statement where she walked back her comments completely. Are you not a bit concerned that you've had to have this chat to her?
Look, it's frustrating for sure, and she had as I said, a poor interview. She didn't express herself well at all. And as a result, we've had a conversation. She fully understands and she fully supports the National Party position, and has, because it's been our position for some time in our caucuses, and we've discussed that. She just expressed herself.
Really?
And she's really clear about it. And I just also wanted to augment that so that she could have some different reading and some more reading to actually fully internalise, that understanding that human-induced climate change is real, period.
She's going to be busy. Is there anyone else in the party who needs...
Human-induced climate change is real. And he's probably said that 3 times now as well. So like I'm saying, the speech writers and the echo chamber or the PR boys in the back room have been very clear. You weren't clear yesterday. You need to get it out there. So it's out there. We've got 30 more seconds with Mr. Luxon, then we'll go to a chat.
It's a reading list for late nights.
Look, I mean, I'm proud of our track record in the environment with the National Party. We are the party and government that signed us up to Paris. We are the government that is, deeply committed to carbon, net carbon zero 2050, the NDC goals for 2030. We supported the government on the emissions reductions budgets last year. We're deeply committed to it. The means by which we deliver that might be different from this government, but don't doubt our commitment to those goals. And that's been our position from the get-go. And that's certainly been my position as a business leader in the past, and certainly as leader of the National Party.
Right. So that's as much of this as we're going to watch.
I do have doubts.
Sure. Well, there are 2 reasons that this conversation is great. But first, Chewy, I don't know if you've seen that before or seen it in its entirety before. So your thoughts, sir?
Yeah, I think the idea to say that Maureen expressed herself poorly is an absolute piss take, because anybody that saw that, she was clear. We knew what position she was taking. That wasn't misspeaking. That was her saying what she believes. Rightly or wrongly, that's what she's done. To immediately get her to turn around and go, I've just been informed that I don't believe those things anymore. And now I believe the new things. If we could just move on, that would be great. It's just such a turnaround that no one's going to believe it. No one at all.
So,
but they know that if people start picking at the scab, there's 2 or 3 more at least in that party that have exactly the same views. So, I'm surprised that we haven't all dogpiled her already, because she was pro-convoy, anti-vaccine. You know, she's a grab bag of stuff that you're like, oh God, I don't want her anywhere near Parliament.
So I don't know if this is the clip that I messaged you about to grab, because I think yours is better. But just so we can all see it again really clearly.
No, that's the one. That's the one I was going to grab.
She said, and Mr. Luxon said, that she didn't communicate clearly what she believed. Let's just have a look to see if we agree with that.
A National MP still isn't convinced on climate science.
It's not what I think, it's what I can prove. I am waiting on the evidence from the minister.
News to a leader.
Is there any
I'm waiting on the evidence.
Mm-hmm.
room for climate deniers in your caucus?
Look, if you're denying that climate exists, if you're a climate minimalist, you can be under no illusions it's real.
Maureen Pugh has just said she's yet to see evidence climate change is man-made.
I would be very strongly saying climate change is real and it's happening.
Disbelief from her own colleagues. Well, some of them.
Do you think that climate change is man-made?
I'm not the weatherman.
Of course it is, and you think you can see the effects of that.
Obviously, man has an impact on the climate. There's no doubt about it.
The science is very clear.
We have cooled and warmed over millions.
So you don't think the current climate change is down to humans?
I have yet to see what the evidence is.
She doesn't believe that it's man.
There you go. That's all we need to see. So ask directly, so therefore you don't believe that the current climate issue is, around. I've yet to see the evidence. There is no ambiguity there. There is not I've used the wrong words. Oh, I slipped up. There's no ambiguity there. So, I saw scrolling past in the text someone saying, because Luxon's got trust issues, and yeah, okay, maybe that's part of the reason, because maybe that's what part of it is. Chewy, when people tell you bullshit and then they tell you a truth, and then they tell you bullshit, and then they tell you a truth, then they tell you bullshit, and then they tell you that last truth, you're like, I don't know if I can accept this truth. Maybe that's what it is. Maybe because even within that sentence, Mr. Luxon was bullshitting when he was saying this was basically, he was saying this is always her belief, she has communicated it. So if that sentence is a lie, that feels like it undermines the under sentence. And what I was going to say is the reason this is great is for 2 reasons, right? 2 reasons that this is great. The first thing is, whether he accepts it or not, he is saying completely the correct and accurate thing. So like we talked about last night, it almost doesn't matter on some level if he accepts it or not, if he actions it. But if he's speaking it out and he's saying it, the correct words, even if he's still on the fence, and I'm not suggesting he is, I'm just saying if, that's a good result. That's the first reason. The second reason is there is a huge voter base for Mr. Luxon who will be so fucked off with him right now for saying that it can do nothing but help the left. So there's 2 reasons why this is very good. The first is he's right in his words. The second is it will alienate some of the people who may well vote for him. They'll go off and vote for the Freedom and Fuckwit Party. That'll be not making it to 5%. That will help the left. And as a strong people on the left, we celebrate when the left has a better chance than the right. Chewy.
I just thought I would grab just a couple of wee nuggets that just illustrate a point of who we're talking about here. Maureen revealed in 2016 that she does not believe in pharmaceutical drugs.
Yeah.
Saying that she never takes any kind of medication and has only given her children chiropractic treatments. And she said that nature delivers what people need, and that there's nothing wrong with getting a cold or a flu.
I hope she never gets cancer then.
She was also one of the last members of parliament to receive the COVID-19 vaccination. So stick a pin in it. She's anti-science.
Yeah.
I would say that she's not a big reader, and certainly not of published peer-reviewed works.
Yeah, I wonder if those books that are on her side table now are pamphlets to help her get through them.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, she's got no background in this sort of stuff. Well, it's terrifying that she's a lawmaker, but she's also a list MP.
Yep.
Like, she hasn't been voted in. She doesn't represent an electorate. At what point do you turn around as leader and go, let's get rid of this albatross around my neck?
Yeah. Well, I mean, they haven't made their list yet. It'll be really interesting to see where she pops up on the list, because if she pops up in the list, let's say top 40, you can expect, I mean, you know, then you'll be going, okay, so you're actually actively wanting this person in. Like if she's at number 80, they've sent a message. If she's, how many will there be? Let's say there's 60 MPs and, you know, 20 of them will win electorate seats. So if she's top 60, top 40, top 60, then they're actually saying we want this person on board. Now, I was going to do this in a different order, but because you've just brought that up, let's go to Paddy Gower, because it's a part of the same conversation and it's kind of echoing some of the stuff you've just been talking about. I was really surprised with some of the Paddy Gower commentary this morning on this, and I couldn't quite make heads nor tail of it whether I agreed with him or not, because he's wording it in a way, it sounds like he's defending Maureen Pugh, but he's also saying, National, these are your people, you should accept them. So on one hand, he's not supporting her views, he makes that very clear, but on one hand, he's going, this is her views, Luxon should allow her to have her views, but that in turn means she can have those views publicly. So I'm not entirely sure how I feel about this, but let's have a listen to Paddy Gower and whoever the other woman is, I don't know, as he talks about Maureen Pugh, and he's kind of disgusted at what Luxon has done, making her walk back her positions.
No, I mean, I just think that that's really quite demeaning to Maureen Pugh from Christopher Luxon. It's all for show. I'm not going to come out on the side of Maureen. Obviously, I don't agree with what she said. Of course, I don't. I think it's quite offensive in terms of what has happened to people in recent times. But Maureen's had views like this for a long time. The National Party know it. She's been selected by the National Party. She's in there. A coaching session in Christopher Luxon's office isn't going to do anything. Christopher Luxon should let Maureen be Maureen. She's a good person, fundamentally. She's had views like this since 2016 when I was in Parliament, and she doesn't believe in pharmaceuticals. It's nothing new. So, you know, to think that he could have a coaching session with her and give her some books to read, it's a free country. She's allowed to say what she wants.
Now, this is when the AM show gets in to try and remind Paddy that they have a right-wing narrative to fulfill and that this could be harmful to National. So we'll listen to that by coming up now.
He is just scared of teal or blue voters in Greylin and Ponsonby who will look at this and be horrified and might not want to vote National. He should care about people on the West Coast. And I'll just say one last thing. Maureen Pugh has been to a hell of a lot more National Party meetings and talked to a hell of a lot more National Party people than Christopher Luxon probably ever will.
Now, do you see what I mean? Like, because everything he's saying is true, but I don't know how I feel about it. So what he's basically saying is this is a constituency within National. And that's why I'm saying these two reasons this is amazing. That constituency will be asked off with what Mr. Luxon has said, even though what Mr. Luxon has said is correct. So Paddy's saying, this is a National Party MP that National Party has been behind and supported, and the National Party has used to get what they need. And now that she says something that the new leader, this new flash fandangled leader doesn't like, they're telling her to pull her head in. That's not how it works. So it's a really interesting dynamic. Let's just keep going, Chewy. You hold any of those beautiful thoughts you've got, because this is the bit where the hosts jump in.
Only hold a couple at a time.
But. So this is the next bit.
He'll quit Parliament sometime soon if he wins or not. She's real National Party, and I'm on Maureen's side.
Yeah, but they'll get crucified in the press. I mean,
who cares?
Well, you've got a party to worry about.
Stick up for your team.
You've got to
stick up for your team. I mean, it's
what's
not,
the point in
Christopher
being in
Luxon
opposition?
needs to learn that it's not Air New Zealand where he can just restructure Maureen Pugh out of there. She's part of his team. She's part of the
But
National
a staff
Party.
member at Air New Zealand expressing a view doesn't then get perceived by the public as the view of the National Party, which in this case it would, wouldn't
And
it?
potentially
That's incorrect.
I agree. And there's a couple of
And potentially
points
cost you an election.
around Maureen.
That was the point.
If she hasn't, in her time in Parliament, got across the science on climate change to be able to understand the human impact, then there's an issue there. I think the most remarkable thing for me yesterday was that Maureen Pugh is still in Parliament. She's one of those MPs that you really don't see unless there's a difficult headline about. And what I was imagining today was sort of Maureen Pugh's bedside table and her reading lists. The one from Christopher Luxon and the one next to it looks like a rabbit hole where you pull sort of climate change conspiracy theories out of. I think Luxon did the right thing yesterday. I mean, there's no doubt that Maureen Pugh yesterday faced a very serious managed retreat from her comments. And as someone, I think it was Thomas Coughlin writing in the Herald, I thought he couldn't have expressed it better. He said, for someone who can barely keep her head above water, she should be more across the difficulties of rising floodwaters.
I just think there's bigger things to worry about in this country than piling on Maureen Pugh.
I agree with you. But that's what the media does.
Anybody can pile on Maureen Pugh. It's let's all have a pile on Maureen Pugh. There's lots of people in this country who are sceptical about climate change. There's no law about being, against being skeptical against climate change. Like, why are we piling on Maureen Pugh?
Well, because right at the moment, all of these issues aren't there. And there's been some silly comments on both sides, right? So Maureen's comments yesterday, they were silly. Unhelpful comments also I saw over the weekend from Kelvin Davis of the Labour Party in a piece saying, oh, look, farmers should now stop railing against emissions targets and what the government is doing because they've faced the full force of climate change. Now, that too, from a politician, is equally as unhelpful. And right at the moment, I think Paddy's point is a good one. We have got big things to focus on, but we need to be assured as the public and be able to trust that our politicians are focused on those big things. So we've gone from a bread and butter election, which is what Chris Hipkins told us it was going to be. We're going to actually the meat and potatoes election. These very big issues, climate change, infrastructure, finally facing up to the really big mahi that we have to do as a country around that. I think that's where the real issues lie.
Right. Chewy, as someone on News Talk there.
Sorry, I kind of get where Paddy's going. I kind of get where Paddy's going with that, to be fair.
Yeah,
like she's been in the National Party. They selected her. It's not like she's pulled these batshit insane views out of thin air just yesterday. She's always had them, and that was fine for them.
Yes, correct.
But they had the option there. An electorate has not voted for her.
Yeah,
they can decide to cut it out. But what Luxon's done is a very corporate thing. You've embarrassed me. Come into my office and let me tell you that cannot happen again. Go out there immediately and fix this. It's a corporate response.
Yeah, and as you're saying that, the phrase in my head is under new management. So you've got to work. You work at in a store or for a company or whatever, and you do things a certain way, and then a new general manager comes in. Things can change overnight. That seems to be what's happening. But as Paddy said, Maureen Pugh has been to more national events, has shaken more national hands than Luxon ever has or ever will, because as Paddy said there, at the end of this cycle, should he lose or should he win and be Prime Minister for a couple of seasons, then he'll be gone and she may well still be there. And Paddy's right. She is national. She is national through and through. He is national conveniently as his next stepping stone. And if she is national through and through, what does that say the heart of the national voter when it comes to climate change is really about?
I was thinking about this earlier today, what a better way, if I was Christopher Luxon, God forbid, how I would have dealt with it. And it would have just been a series of statements just going, look, I strongly disagree with her views. She's welcome to them. I think that they're wrong.
Yeah.
This is my party, and this is the direction we're going.
Yeah, it could have been we're a big church. That saying we're a big church. Lots of different views. I'm not the same. I mean, there are people further to the right, further to the left, more centrist within. Lots of views. I disagree with her. I think she's wrong. I think the science is clear. Man-made, yada, 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 which he didn't do yesterday. Yesterday, he fumbled. I wonder as well, we've already said this a dozen times, looking forward to those debates. But I wonder about his ability to take off the cuff kind of questions and comments and getting caught out with a thing he hasn't
Yeah.
thought about. Because maybe, and like we said yesterday, we were fair. We said maybe he does believe it's all man-made. Well, not all, but contributing. And so maybe he just didn't find the word yesterday, which is bad. And so if he was our prime minister and then he was in an international situation with an international, at the G20 or the whatever we have, and he was put on the spot to make commentary there and he couldn't find the words, then what? It kind of needs to be a bit of a prerequisite that you can handle yourself in an off the cuff situation and be able to find the correct answer. Because if you can't, that can become a geopolitical issue if you're the prime minister.
And if you look at it's almost a pattern now that he'll get asked a question, he'll spit something out, and then the next day clarify because he's gone back to his team and gone, "Oh no, I've said this. I haven't been clear enough. What do I need to say?" Yeah, a debate will show. Well, a debate might show that because you can be coached heavily to prep for a debate.
Yeah,
it depends on whether he's going to get hit with a curveball. The other aspect of that interview that I want to talk about is very, very strong statements about climate change and what National will do. No, just that he believes in climate change and that they have a plan.
Carbon neutral by 2050. And he did talk about signing up to Paris. So there were a couple of things in there
There's a couple of things there.
Yeah.
But by the same token, as V Bunch points out in the chat, the Nat said that they'll keep up with permits for oil and gas exploration.
Yeah.
Take
away the rebate. Take away the EV rebate.
There's heaps of stuff that he's saying one thing, and it's not backed up by anything concrete put down in paper. If this is a big shift in National, I'm all for it, but they've got to do something more concrete than I think I've been very clear. I believe in this. I've got nothing to back it up.
Kookie says, and thanks for the $5 super chat, Kookie. If she's just a list MP, can't he fire her? I tell you the way he would do it, Kookie, if he wanted to. But here's the thing, he puts her number 87 on the list. There's a constituency for Maureen Pugh. That's why she's there. There are voters on the right who don't want to hear from Mr. Luxon. We signed up to Paris. It's like the GOP claiming to be the party of Lincoln, the party who freed the slaves. It's like it's actually not the base right now that wants to hear that. The base for National doesn't want to hear, oh, so you've signed us up to that woke Paris thing, which is why Luxon's response will probably work against them, because I can tell you they're not going to drag over centre-left people because Luxon said that, but they will turn off some further right people. So it seems to me to be a net loss. Like, again, it's the right thing. He's correct. So that's good, but it's also good that there is a portion of his base who's going to run from him because of it. I also want to mention Kim's comment, because I agree with what Kim says, and I'll give you an example of something else. Kim says, I'd respect her more if she didn't walk it back. I remember when Working for Families came out. Working for Families came out under Helen Clark's Labor government, as did interest-free student loans, right? Two big policies that Labor government put through. When John Key wanted to beat Labor, and eventually they did, he said that they wouldn't touch Working for Families, and he said they wouldn't touch interest-free student loans. Now, I was a beneficiary of both of those tax breaks at that time. So I was stoked to hear John Key wouldn't walk them back. However, I also know they are completely not national-aligned policies. And much like Kim here, I would have respected John Key a lot more if he had have been honest about getting rid of them. But he didn't, because they were very popular and lots of people wouldn't have voted for him because of it. Now, that's fine. That's how politics goes. But much like Kim says about Maureen, respected her more if she'd stood by her guns. I understand what you're saying, Kim. I also understand that politics is a game, and they did that for the game reason, just like John Key kept Working for Families and interest-free student loans for the game reason. Chewy.
Yeah. I don't think I would respect Maureen more if she stuck to her guns. I'd respect Luxon more if he'd done it in a different way.
Right.
You know, as we're saying, if he just said, "Look, I strongly disagree with it," that's the thing. It's not a corporate thing. You're always going to have MPs with slightly different points of view on stuff, even to this degree, where she's obviously cocoa bananas. Yeah, but yeah,
Okay.
I think just keeping track of where she is when they announce the National Party list is, as you said, is going to illustrate that very clearly. I'm going to play you a clip now, and the clip is from a guy called Professor Stephen Lewandowski, and it's sort of a side note to what we're talking about. It's a conversation that I've had several times with you. I even paraphrased it badly last night about the link between the free market and climate change deniers. I thought what I'll just do is, rather than bastardizing him all the time, is I'll pull a little clip out for you, and I'll play the clip from the podcast I've referenced lots of times. It's really interesting to hear, because it's interesting to hear about the difference between evidence and proof. And this doesn't necessarily apply to Maureen Pugh, because she used the word evidence, but she also talked about proving it. So, you know, when people ask for proof, it's not a scientific term. Even though when I think you and I, the non-scientific people, talk about proof, we are kind of saying evidence, but language matters. Now, here's what I will say to you guys who are watching, and you'll be the only people who can say this. If you would like to see this podcast in full, and it's about an hour podcast, message the chat whilst it's playing if you get anything out of it. And if you do, I will set it up as a premiere tomorrow night. It has already played. This is already on my YouTube channel, our YouTube channel, but I'll play it again tomorrow night because we're not going to be here tomorrow night. So when you see this clip, if this interests you that you'd like to see the whole clip, then message me or message us in the chat. And if we get enough responses, then I will put it up. If you like, if this is all you need, then we'll just play this, and tomorrow night everyone will have a night off. So this is Professor Stephen Lewandowski talking about the difference between evidence and proof, and talking about climate change deniers and their link to a free market. So tell us, I mean, why does that happen? Why do people, when given unchallengeable scientific truths and proofs, still choose to stick with their beliefs?
Well, first of all, I got to correct you on that one, because science doesn't offer proof. It offers evidence.
Okay.
And I think that's very important to be aware of that, because intriguingly, one of the interesting techniques of people who reject scientific evidence is to ask for proof. That's one of their techniques, is to say, well, can you prove to me that climate change exists? And the answer to that is, well, no, of course not. It's not a matter of proof. It's a matter of evidence. There is no proof outside of mathematics. So, and it's kind of important to get that right, because otherwise, you know, when a climate denier, quote unquote, says, oh, I want proof, then you might be tempted to try and give it to them. Well, you can't. And that is where they're wrong to begin with, because by asking for proof, they're already basically disqualifying themselves from a scientific debate, because in science, the best you can do is to produce evidence and pile evidence on top of evidence on top of evidence. And then ultimately you get to the point where we say that something is a fact, such as climate change, for example, where the evidence is so overwhelming that not accepting it is just not a rational position to take. Now, when I say rational, what I mean by that is rational in the very strict sense of how philosophers have worked out that we should consider evidence. And so the question then is, as you already asked, why do people not accept the evidence? What is it that makes them say, oh, no, I want proof, even though there is a pile of evidence in front of their eyes? And the answer is that instead of engaging in this quote unquote rational evidence accumulation process, people resort to what we call motivated cognition. Now, motivated cognition is a very broad term, and it refers to the idea that people start out with a goal in their head of what they're trying to conclude, and they will then draw that conclusion. They'll be motivated to draw that conclusion no matter what the evidence says.
Right.
And now the question is, okay, what makes people engage in motivated cognition? And that's where things get to be very interesting, because there's a lot of ways in which that can happen. In the context of climate change, and indeed in most situations I've looked at, what triggers people's motivated cognition is the conflict between their personal worldview and the scientific evidence. So basically, it's ideology versus evidence. And that is why when you look at towards climate change, is their attitudes towards the free market. If they're libertarian or free market fundamentalists or conservatives who think that, you know, business should be laissez-faire, free enterprise, you know, that cluster of attitudes, if people subscribe to that strongly, then chances are that they will reject the evidence from climate change. I can ask people 4 or 5 questions about the free market, and once I know their answers, my uncertainty about their climate change belief is cut in half.
Right.
Which is incredible.
Right. So
right?
you can,
I mean,
so you can probe them in a different area and say, well, because they've answered this here, you know, like a free market economy, they're likely to believe this here.
Precisely.
Wow.
Precisely. And the association is incredibly strong. And if you think about it, that's not surprising, because if you accept the scientific evidence about climate change, then we're going to have to do something and change the way we do business. And that means we got to put a price on carbon. We might need taxes, regulations. There might be some, you know, some industries like the coal industry, for example, you know, is going to go out of business. There's no question. So there'll be a massive transformation of the economy in ways that are not compatible with the sort of fundamentalist approach to free market economics. And so you have that conflict. And some people's identity is so tied up in their free market beliefs that they get incredibly challenged by the claims that the climate is changing, that we have to do something about it. And it becomes a very deep emotional response. And their way of defending their identity against that is by simply denying the science. They just say, well, you haven't proven it to me. You know, there's no proof. Hence, I can walk away from it. For example, there's lots of other ways in which they do it. But the motivating factor is ideology.
So there you go. That's the that's a 5-minute clip for you, and it's I think it's probably the longest clip that we've ever played with no pausing or talking in Chewy. But I wanted to give people the thing that I've talked about several times before. The reason I spoke to Mr. Lewandowski is because of his research into conspiracy theorists. His research is climate denial, but because it was a time of COVID, it was a couple of years ago, it married up with all the stuff that we're seeing right now. So that's why we talked to him. And I just want to say as well, Chewy, do you not agree? Hang on, let me just mute that. Let's just do this.
Well,
and proofs. Can I just ask you, between me and you, no one else has to, you don't have to answer this.
Okay.
Look at the size of that man.
As I said the other night.
Can't hear you, Chewy. Are you muted?
Oh, you muted me.
Go again.
Hello.
Oh, I muted you. Oh, okay. That's why the thing's not playing. Yeah, no, that's better. You're back now. So yeah, look at the size of the man. It's a big fella. That's 50 kilos heavier. Side point, but let's keep going. Anyway. So people are saying in the chat they want to hear it. Yeah?
That seems to be the consensus.
Okay. All right. I'll do that. I'll do the whole thing for tomorrow.
Unrelated.
I'll do the whole thing for tomorrow night. People are asking if we'd live stream the Beersies. We're not going to do that because we're not going to tell people where we are. I know we mentioned, if you saw us on Friday, we mentioned a place that's not going to be where we are. Only because we're, you know, as silly as it sounds, we're thinking about Byron's safety and security. So we're not going to be there. We haven't actually even decided. You guys might just come to my place and have beers here or something. But we're not going to identify where we are. We're not going to live stream. We might take a little video and upload it next week or something, but we're not going to do any live streaming of that. Fair, Chewy?
Yes. I like in that interview, he touches on a favorite tactic. Well, I say favorite with heavy irony. The term sea lining.
Yep.
type of trolling consisting of pursuing people with requests for evidence. Show me evidence. Okay, here's the evidence. That's corrupted, or there's a reason why I'm discounting that evidence. Show me the real evidence. Okay, what about this one? No,
Yeah.
well, there's a reason that's not valid either. See, you can't prove anything.
Yeah.
It's a tactic designed to wear people down.
Yeah.
It's definitely a comment section sort of thing where it's like, see, he stopped replying to me. That means I've won.
Yeah.
So yeah,
that's
just something
easy.
I think people need to be aware of.
That's easy. Just never talk to those people. You ignore them. Don't feed the trolls, bro.
Yeah.
It's fun to feed them, but you're right, because if you have fun debates with people and you're having fun and they're being serious, and then you're like, okay, I'm over this now. They think they've won something when they haven't. So anyway, his term, and I've used this term a lot, is motivated cognition. As he said, it's your motivate. You've made up the outcome already. You know what it's going to be. It's going to be, for example, the COVID vaccine kills people, and then you motivate your way to that. No matter what you have to do, no matter what evidence is put in front of you to discount that, you find a way to the conclusion that you already have drawn. And the way I've always described it is, if you go from A to B and someone puts a blockade in between A and B, then you just go A to B1 and then go to B to get to the answer. And it's a thing. And but the other thing about that, hopefully that'll help people. If someone asks you for proof of something, you're like, well, we might be splitting hairs, but let's have a look at the evidence. And the Maureen Pugh thing, just to bring it back again, she's saying she's waiting for the evidence.
She's waiting for the right evidence.
Yeah, that's
correct.
Yeah. All right. We're going to move on because it's 13 minutes to whatever the end of the show is supposed to be. Never is. And I want to talk to you about what are they called? Advanced directives. Now, this is something that I came across more recently, and I did a spot on Today FM today where this was one of our topics to talk about. And I actually thought this is quite interesting to talk about. Very simply, an advanced directive is where someone makes, it's almost like a will, but it's a direction in advance for your health care should you be incapacitated, right? So it's you setting up a contract or a legal document that says, I don't want to be aided. I don't want to, be cared for. I don't want my life extended. I don't want to be resuscitated, these sorts of things. And it's a legal document. The reason this is in the news, that there's this bill out there at the moment, this petition out there at the moment by this family, and they're looking to get submitted a thing called Barbie's bill. Now, Barbie is Barbara or Barbie Duffy. What happened to Barbie is, on the morning of Wednesday, 6th of October 2021, Barbie had a major stroke at her home. She had a clear, valid, advanced directive in place withdrawing care so she could be allowed to die. Should she suffer from a serious loss of mental or physical capacity. Her directive was not followed, and she was kept alive. The stroke left her unable to speak, read, or write. With limited comprehension and movement, she needed 24/7 care, possibly for many years. Weeks later, she could understand more, so she understood now what had happened. What she then did was Barbara refused food and, in the end, fluids, and she died 58 days later, unmedicated until the last few days. So in other words, she starved herself to death because she didn't want to continue on. And that is what this bill is about. The bill is about, will ensure advanced care plans count and that a person's wishes, their informed consent must be followed. So what I am interested in having a chat about in general, there's another page that I'm missing here. Is it that one there? No. Is it that one there? No. Is it that one there? Is what we think about that. Look, what I'm going to do is I'm going to play you a clip here first of all. So this is Barbie's daughter, and she's going around doing media at the moment as to why this should be introduced as law. Let me play you this. It's about 90 seconds.
After my mum, Barbie, had a major stroke, she had a clear advance directive in place saying to withdraw care if she had a serious loss in mental or physical capacity. Her directive wasn't followed. In a nutshell, Barbie's bill is trying to make sure there's an effective advance directive system and to make sure the advance directives are followed because they're the patient's informed consent. Firstly, Barbie's bill's looking to have a centralised database in place so that advanced directives are accessible immediately and from anywhere. Secondly, it's trying to have standardised advanced care directive plans put in place so that people don't know what they don't know. This will have a clear list of treatments that they can choose to do or not do, and also show the intent as to when they want it applied. The third thing that the bill aims to do is to have a mandate, a legislative mandate, that advanced directives must be followed so that the patient's informed consent and their wishes are the priority. It was really difficult to see someone so vibrant and full of life like Mum make such a difficult decision and have to end her life the way she did. Trying to withhold food and fluids is a really difficult thing for her to do, both physically and mentally. It was extreme what she had to do to herself. And we were unable to help her, or limited as to how we could help her mentally, because she was unable to communicate and her comprehension was damaged. So it was a very concerning time for the family. We were always worried, and we just felt that it shouldn't have happened.
There you go. So I've already talked about this once today, Chewy. Let me just put this back across because I found what I was looking for. So in a nutshell, this is what they're saying, what Barbie's bill is. It's about giving people choice and control over their care, which can include the right to refuse care to allow them to control how they die. So that's a pretty good synopsis about what the bill seems to be about. Any thoughts?
That situation sounds like an absolute nightmare. Like in the full weight of the word. I don't understand how that came about, to be honest. Like I've never looked into it. I don't know the things around it or anything like that. But I mean, from the sounds of it, she had a plan in place of why wasn't it followed?
Well, let me jump in then. I don't know the answer to that question, but this is one of those instances where I'd also be very clear to say that anecdotal evidence, i.e. someone's individual story, may not be representative of the data. So yes, this is an individual story and it's a tragic and horrible individual story, but it may not be representative of the overall situation that may befall us. What I thought of this afternoon when I was talking about this on Today FM was this, right? It's all about giving people choice and control over their care. As always, the devil is in the detail, yeah? So we had recently a baby whose parents didn't want that baby to have vaccinated blood. Now, yes, it's a child. We're not talking about this for children. It's for over 18s of sound mind. What if that over 18 wanted the choice and control over their care to only have Aryan blood? Like that was their choice. That's what they wanted. They didn't want to have any kind of mixed race blood put into them or something else, right? And this is what I finally realized. And this actually goes to a lot of people's rights and freedoms, I think, is that as soon as you need to involve other people in carrying out your rights or freedoms, then we have a problem. Because what you're actually doing is saying you now must adhere to my rights and freedoms. And sometimes rights and freedoms are a choice for you. Yes, you have the right to do, say, be, call yourself anything you want. That's your life. That's your world. As soon as you incorporate someone else, and in this instance, it's people who have sworn to do no harm, people who have sworn, being doctors, to uphold life. As soon as you include them, then you don't necessarily have the ability to order what's going to happen. Now, in this instance, I don't know the situation. I'm not saying that the situation, therefore, is okay. What I'm saying is doctors typically want to save lives, not end lives. Now, I have had this euthanasia conversation as part of my other podcast. And one of the points being that when euthanasia was debated and was put up before the court, doctors typically don't want to do that. They don't want to terminate somebody, even if it means making them comfortable until they die naturally. It's not a practice within the medical fraternity. But this idea that if you've got a right that requires someone else to either participate in or uphold, then that's actually, what if their right is not to carry out that terminal statement? And then what? The other thing about this bill is the authors of this bill and this legislation are saying they want to have, medical people involved with writing these things. They want to have it standardized, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Well, not to talk about conspiracy stuff, but I know medical doctors who think the vaccine kills people. So just because you've got a doctor's name attached to a document doesn't necessarily mean it's the right answer all the time. So I'm kind of a fence sitter on this because I hear that story and I go, that's repulsive, repugnant, horrible, wrong. It shouldn't happen. But I also go, on the other hand, though, how does the medical fraternity feel about, let's say a doctor thought this person could live for another 5 or 10 years. Yes, they're going to be incapacitated, but they could. And the person chose that they wanted to terminate their life. Remember, we've always had the ability to terminate our lives. That's never been off the table. And it's a horrible way to think about it, but that's why our suicide numbers are so off the charts. But as soon as you incorporate someone else into the end of your life, then there's other people that are outside just yourself that need to be incorporated.
Yeah.
And that's where I think the difficulty comes in, Chewie.
Yeah, I mean, don't they have entire debates about stuff like this with and when you're learning to become a doctor, medical ethics and that sort of thing? It is literally the topic.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's a real tough one because my first glance is like, of course, like if it's written down and the person doesn't want to do this, then their wishes should be followed, just like they would with an actual will. But yeah, then there's all of these side issues. There is someone that has literally taken an oath to do no harm, and that sort of thing has to come in and literally to the definition. What is harm at that point? Then maybe you've got the kids. Maybe all the kids don't agree with mum. They don't want to let her go. And they're the ones that can speak and she can't. So who do you listen to at that point?
Yeah, look, and Rob, let me just put Rob's comment up because he's right. We don't have a humane way of terminating our own lives. Look, I can see that my example was very clunky and you're right. But all I'm saying is that the flip side to that is involving someone else in terminating your life, which adds another layer of complexity. That's, I guess, what I'm trying to say. When you add other people into your decisions, like whatever that is, if Chewie chooses to be Prince Chewie from now on, and we all are now,
that was an
and he
option.
says his rights are for people to bow before him every time he enters a room, then we need to participate in that. It's a very flippant example, but what I'm saying is as soon as you have something that other people need to do, I'm not saying that therefore it's wrong. I'm not saying that at all, but I'm saying then you've got other perspectives, other people involved, and I don't know what happened with Barbie. It sounds horrific, but maybe she had medical help that, okay, so you've written it down, but my whole 40-year career, I've been trained to save life. And that's what we do. And your certificate, your legal document that you've drawn up doesn't suffice in an emergency. I don't know. Maybe they didn't see the advance notice. I don't know. All I'm saying is that when you ask another person to carry out the rights for you, then the conversation gets bigger.
Yeah. Yep. Big topic.
It is. And look, I'm not saying I'm right, you're wrong, or that's right, or this is wrong. I'm just saying it's, as is always, the gray area is where we need to find the truth rather than that, yes, it's their right, so they should be able to do it. Yeah, because that's not how the world works. It's a little bit of, there's the idea of a theoretical answer versus a real world application. The real world application of this is very different from theoretically what seems so simple, which is someone's wishes. The real world application of those wishes might be a very different situation. That's all I'm saying. I'm not saying therefore it's wrong. I'm just saying I don't think necessarily it's as black and white as it's being painted today. That's what I'm saying.
No, and like I remember a lot of the debate around David Seymour's bill around the same sort of topic. Yeah, I couldn't form a position on it either. But one argument that I found very convincing, it was from the disabled community, going, we have big concerns about this. Who gets to decide for us?
Yeah.
How do we make it clear enough that someone just doesn't go, this person's a burden, and can't speak for themselves. So we'll
And I just for clarity, everyone, this is not what they're talking about. They're talking about is like me writing an agreement for me. Should I be incapacitated? So not to negate what you're saying, because I understand that was a conversation, but that's not what they're talking about with this. They're talking about, the nil by mouth, the do not resuscitate, that kind of thing on some version. And in this instance, I guess it's the lady had a stroke. She was incapacitated, so she didn't want to have any medical intervention at all, but she got it. And then when she realized she had it and she was now, I guess, paralyzed, couldn't speak, couldn't feed herself, she then chose to starve herself to death, which sounds horrific. But then I'm not trying to sound cold-hearted, even though sometimes the thing about data is incredibly cold-hearted because it's really just numbers, whereas anecdotal evidence is someone's heartfelt personal story. So anecdotal evidence is very persuading. Individual stories are very persuading. Data is very cold, but it's really important that we include the data in these conversations. And I don't even know what the data is in this, but I'm saying in general, by this instance, by data, I'm meaning the broader conversation as to what needs to come to the whole medical community needs to come to an agreement on this, really. So it's just a bigger conversation, but I thought it was an interesting one throughout today, and it's in the news at the moment. So yeah, a bit of a different one to wrap up the week, I guess. So tomorrow night we're going to put on Professor Stephen Lewandowski's conversation, and that'll play in full for you guys. It's from the DOC podcast, which I think is starting up again this week. I've got Simon Wilson from the New Zealand Herald lined up. We're going to do political conversations only. And so on Friday, there'll probably be one of those released. I'm supposed to be doing that podcast tomorrow afternoon, but I've had a very busy week. So we'll see if it's this week or next week. And other than that, we won't be here tomorrow night because we'll be out spending all the super chat money that you guys were so generous with on Friday night on beers with Byron Clark. If you haven't got it yet, you haven't seen it yet. Oh, crumbs. There we go. Here's Byron's book in stores now. Fear. Should I take it and get it autographed tomorrow night, Chewy?
I think you'd be stupid if you didn't.
Is that a bit pick me a little bit?
No.
Maybe I could get it autographed. Maybe I could get it autographed and give it away. Yeah.
Oh, that's not a bad idea.
It's not a bad idea. We'll do that. I'll take it along. I'll get it autographed, and then next week we'll give it to someone. So there you go. We'll give that away next week. It's brand new. To be honest, I haven't read this copy because we got sent a PDF, and I read most of the PDF. So this actually is brand spanking new. Hasn't been read. Arrived today. So maybe we'll give the book away, and then 1,000 people will send the PDF. What do you think, Joey? No, maybe not. Okay, no, we won't do that. I'm joking. If you're watching, Byron, that was just a joke, nothing more. So that's what we'll be doing tomorrow night. We do want to say and remind you as well, though, that on Saturday morning there is a patrons meetup. Thank you to all our patrons. And again, thank you to Anna, who joined up as a patron today. We've had one patron join us every day. Let's finish the week with a patron tomorrow and a patron on Friday. And if you do join up before Saturday or before, say, Friday midnight, you'll get an invitation to come to the meetup on Saturday morning. It is a virtual meetup, which means no matter where you are in the world, you can be a part of it. If you'd like to support the work that we're doing, then all you need to do, as it says on the bottom of the screen, is head to patreon.com/Big Hairy News. And thank you very much for being involved for the week. Not here tomorrow night, meeting up somewhere, maybe even at my place, Chewy. We'll figure that out once we get off air. But as I said before, it won't be at the place that we once spoke of it being, because that would be silly of us. So that won't be happening. All right. Is there anything else we want to wrap up with? Is there any other chats that we want to get out there before we head off? I haven't really been paying much attention to the chats. Apologies. That's my bad.
Well, there was a little bit of a discussion. Not really on the sort of side.
Hang on. Tangent number one. I'm just guessing that's where we're going.
No, it sort of runs sort of parallel to what we were just discussing. There was a program that popped up for me the other night on Amazon. And it's from a couple of years ago, but it absolutely wasn't on my radar. It's called Upload. And I thought it was just like a funny little comedy, but it deals with other people's wishes when you are perhaps fatally injured and your consciousness gets uploaded to a computer simulation. And I thought it was just going to be silly comedy, but every now and then they chuck in some big topics for you to chew on. I think the main one is that in this case, the guy's girlfriend didn't want him to go, so uploaded him to his her family's server, and basically it's implied and totally sketched out at one point that she has full control over his life. She can delete him if they break up, and that's just hanging there. And
Wow.
I really like it. I think there's only 2 seasons so far though, but yeah, definitely worth a watch.
Yeah. All right, upload. What did we start watching? Oh, yeah, because The Last of Us is sort of getting me at the moment. I didn't. This is only the second week that I've watched it in real time, like in the week of. So I got to see the first 4 kind of back to back, and I think I'm a bit sold on the binging stuff, because I'm struggling to have to wait till the following week. So we're looking for other series, and I'm still haven't done White Lotus. I think I'm going to want to check out White Lotus. Maybe I'll start that this weekend, because there's nothing but good things about White Lotus that I hear.
Yeah,
so
that's another one that's on my list.
All right, team. Hey, thanks for being with us tonight. We will catch you live Monday night from 9 p.m. Unless you're a patron, then we might, if you choose to. If you're already a patron, then it's already in your inbox. See you on Saturday morning at 11 a.m. New Zealand time. If you're not a patron yet, go and become one. You can see at the bottom of the screen, patreon.com/Big Hairy News. And then we could also see you on Saturday morning at 11 a.m. Someone says station 11. Know nothing about it, but I'll write it down. All right. Good to be back with you. Thanks, guys. We'll catch you live again on Monday night. Maybe we'll do a little video when we're with Byron as well, and upload it maybe on Friday night or on Friday or something. But we will see you again live on Monday night for another edition of Big Hero News. Everybody stay safe through the weekend, and we will catch you when we catch you. Hey, Roop.
Cheers, fam.